All right, today we are tackling a huge question. How do you actually meaningfully multiply your income? And we're not just going to talk theory here. We're breaking down a real roadmap that starts with just a little bit of cash and builds all the way up to a completely different way of thinking about making money.
So let's just start right there. If I handed you $1,000 right now, what would you do with it? I'm not talking about making a quick buck, but building a system, a machine that could actually 10x your income over time. It's a tough one, right? Well, today we're going to break down a framework for how to answer it.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with two really concrete business ideas you can get going. Then we'll level up to a bigger play, and from there we dive into the really crucial stuff, the mindset, how to find your personal edge, and, just as important, how to avoid the common traps everyone else falls into. Let's get into it. First up, what can you really do with just $1,000? The key here is to completely forget about all the sexy, high-tech startup ideas. The real money, the real opportunity, is almost always hiding in the most unsexy, overlooked corners of the market. Okay, check these two out. They are completely different paths, but both start with a tiny budget. On one side, you've got a physical business, wedding rentals. People are spending a fortune on outdoor weddings right now, and for maybe a few $100 in lumber, you can build a beautiful wedding arch that rents for $1,000 a pop. And here's the pro tip. You market to the wedding planners, not the brides. On the other side, you have a completely digital play, the local newsletter.
Let's walk through this playbook because it's such a brilliant little system. First, you start with free software, so your cost to get set up is $0. Then, you put your entire $1,000 budget into super targeted local ads to get your first 1,000 subscribers. Now, the crucial part. You have to write it yourself. Make it feel personal, like it's from a neighbor who's in the know, not some robot. And here's the genius move. Your future advertisers, they're already on your email list. Something like 10% of adults are business owners, so you can market directly to them to sell ad space. The real power of this model is just in the math. It's so simple. If you're acquiring a subscriber for about $1 and that subscriber generates about 50 cents per month in ad revenue, well, you do the math. You can make your entire initial investment back in just 2 months. After that, it's pure profit, and you can just copy and paste this model to other cities.
Okay, so you've got some cash flow going. Let's level up. What can you do with $5,000? This is where passive income starts to become a real possibility. And we're going to look at a pretty unexpected but super profitable area, RV parks.
Now, to understand this whole play, you just need to know one term, cap rate. It sounds complicated, but it's just a simple way to value commercial real estate. It's the annual profit divided by the price. So if you see a park listed with a 10% cap rate, it just means its annual profit is 10% of its asking price. Understanding this one number is the key to finding hidden gems.
But wait, how do you buy a $200,000 park with only $5,000? Well, it's through this amazing thing called seller financing. This is where you actually convince the owner to act as the bank. You make monthly payments to them out of the profits the park is already generating. And it's a great pitch for them, because if you fail, they just get their park back, plus all the payments you've already made. It lowers their risk and lets you get in the game without a massive down payment.
Okay, so now let's connect all the dots. This is where the magic happens. You find a park that's making, say, $20,000 a year, maybe because it has no website and their rates are way too low. You buy it at an undervalued 10% cap rate. Then with your $5,000, you make super simple improvements, a free website, some Facebook ads, and you boost the profit to $30,000. Now the market sees it as a much more valuable asset, and they'll value it at a healthier 8% cap rate. And just like that, the park you paid $200,000 for is now worth $375,000. You've literally created massive value with a minimal investment.
So we've seen the what, right? The specific ideas. But the real secret, the thing that makes all this work, isn't the idea itself. It's the mindset you use to find what actually clicks. It's about how you approach the hunt, which brings us to this brilliant analogy about fishing.
Think about this for a second. The world of business, it's like a vast ocean, and most people, they go out, they cast their line a few times with the same old bait, they get nothing, and they go home completely convinced there are no fish. But they're missing the entire point.
So imagine you're out on a deep-sea fishing trip. You're using all the standard lures, casting over and over, and nothing. Hours go by, not a single nibble. You're starting to get really frustrated. Then the captain does something really bizarre. He pulls out a McDonald's straw, and it has to be McDonald's because of the red and yellow stripes. He cuts a tiny piece and threads it onto the fishing line right above the hook. I mean, it seems completely insane. So you cast it out and bam, immediately you get a bite.
and then another one, and another. It turns out the colors and the way that little piece of straw spun in the water perfectly mimicked some kind of small fish. This weird, totally unconventional idea completely changed the game.
So here's the crucial point. Success isn't about stubborn persistence with one method that isn't working. It's about relentless experimentation. If one bait doesn't work, you don't go home. You try a different bait. You try fishing at a different depth. You put a McDonald's straw on the line. You keep testing variables until you get that first bite, because that's a signal that you're finally onto something.
Now, once you adopt that testing mindset, the next logical step is to figure out, where do you even fish, right? You can't test everything everywhere. You need to focus your experiments where you have what's called an unfair advantage, which is basically your right to win.
This is such a powerful filter for any new idea you have. Before starting anything, you have to ask yourself, why am I the absolute right person to do this? What edge do I have that nobody else does? And the key here is that this isn't just for seasoned pros. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has an unfair advantage in some area of their life.
So what does that even look like? Well, it could be deep knowledge you have about a super niche hobby. It could be your network of friends who all work in a specific industry. Maybe you've got a small social media following you can leverage. Or, and this is a great one, maybe you're a 13-year-old who understands the world of Roblox better than any adult venture capitalist ever could. That is a massive unfair advantage.
Okay, and finally, let's talk about what not to do. It's just as important to know where to fish as it is to know which parts of the ocean to avoid completely. These are the super tempting but ultimately empty spots we call mirage opportunities.
Have you ever noticed this? There are certain business ideas that seem so obvious, and every single year a new batch of entrepreneurs tries to build them, and they almost always fail. There's a reason for that. If it looks like a perfect opportunity, but nobody can seem to make it work, it's probably a mirage.
Here are a few classic examples. Everyone tries to build the perfect app for organizing groups of friends, but they always fail because they misunderstand social dynamics. College students always try to build an on-campus events app, but it fails because students decide what to do based on their friends, not some digital notice board. And apps for new podcasters often fail because statistically, most new podcasters quit within just a few months. The market itself is fundamentally broken.
And that really brings us to the core takeaway of this entire thing. Real, sustainable success, it rarely comes from chasing the big, sexy, obvious idea that everyone else is going after. It comes from finding an unsexy, overlooked problem, applying that fishing mindset of relentless experimentation, and doing it all in an area where you have a unique, unfair advantage.
So, as we wrap up, I'll leave you with this one question. Forget about the billion-dollar ideas for just a moment and ask yourself, what unique knowledge, skills, or network do you have? What do you understand better than almost anyone else? Because that, right there, that's your starting point. That's your right to win.